In 1944, the United States was at war with Germany. And the war was coming to an end. And as the war was coming to an end, people wondered, when we caught Adolf Hitler, what would we do with him? So there was a national essay contest. And there was a $1,000 prize for the person who came up with the best essay on what it is that we should do to Adolf Hitler when we catch him. The winner of the essay had only one line. He said, we should catch him, and we should take him, and we should put him in the body of a colored person. We should put him in the body of a black person and let him live in America for the rest of his life. I was born by the river in a little tent, ooh, just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long, long time coming, but I knew change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. In reality, I was born in Harlem Hospital. And when I was about 12 months old, my parents realized that they could not live in New York City on one salary. So they sent me to live with my great-grandfather, who was 90 years old when I was born, in Virginia. When I got to Virginia, I didn't know what was going on, but I did know that every day I saw the same person. I saw the same face. I didn't realize that that was my primary caregiver, my great-grandfather. He was the most enormous person in my life. He was tall, he was bald-headed, and he always wore overalls with a white collarless shirt. And when I was 5 years old, my great-grandmother made me 2 pair of overalls and 2 white collarless shirts. Everybody called him Papa, but his name changed once I was born because we were always together all the time. So they called him Big Papa, and they called me Little Papa. So we were Big Papa and Little Papa strolling down the street. We went every place together. We did everything together. When I woke up in the morning, that was the first person I saw. When I went to bed at night, that's who said prayers with me. My great-grandfather taught me everything I ever needed to know. He taught me how to comb my hair, how to brush my teeth, how to tie my shoes. But the most important thing that he taught me was how to be colored. Because if you lived in the South in those days, you had to know how to be colored. And so every place that we went, every new place that we visited, he would take time out and he would show me because they had signs. And he would say, that's the colored restroom. And that's the cracker restroom. That's the colored waiting room. That's the cracker waiting room. That's the colored water fountain. That's the cracker water fountain. Everything was pretty clear. But it was when I got to be almost 5 years old when I realized that W-H-I-T-E did not spell cracker. So I said, Papa, you know, every time we see the sign, you always say cracker. He said, well, you know, son, when I was your age, I was a slave. And when I was a slave, we had the overseer and we had the master, and anytime they wanted to take that whip and crack it on our backs, they could crack it on our backs. And then after slavery, when we were nobody's property, we had no rights at all. So anybody who wanted to crack us with a whip could just crack us with that whip. So we called them the whip crackers, and I guess after time, it just got down to being crackers. But that's who they are, and that's what they are, the people that whip us, the whip crackers. He said that crackers hate us. We don't know why the crackers hate us. We just know that they hate us. And the reason that we know that they hate us is they came all the way to Africa to kidnap us. They put us in chains. They put us in the holds of ships stinking from the blood, feces, and death of stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of Africans. And then they brought us to strange new lands and put us on auction blocks sold us into slavery where we worked from can't see day to can't see night. And they say that because of slavery, we hate them. But it was they who came and got us. We didn't come to them, they came for us. Papa said, we will never know why they hate us, but we know they hate us. He said they even made a law when we were slaves. And the law said, all slavery in the United States of America is abolished, except for those people accused of committing a crime. So what they did was, after slavery, they put us in poverty. And while in poverty, they saw to it that they had black codes and Jim Crow, so that we sometimes went right back to the same plantations that we were on before, working that same land. They had us on chain gangs where we built their roads, we built their bridges, we built their tunnels. They put us in mines where we dug the coal to fuel their industrial revolution, and they hate us. But they accuse us always of hating them. So if after slavery they had stopped treating us the way that they did, we would have gotten over it. We would have forgotten about it. But continually, over and over again, they demonstrate to us that they hate us. Now, across the street from our house was the Nat Turner Forest. And Papa said that the Nat Turner Forest is the forest where the people with Nat Turner planned their revolt and their revolution against slavery. And so we would go into the Nat Turner Forest almost every day. The Nat Turner Forest was like one of the most beautiful places you ever want to see. There were orange trees, there were apple trees, there were peach trees, there were cherries, there were lemons. I mean, there was an abundance of fruit in that area. And as we walked through the area, Papa could just walk up to the beehive and take his little pot and dip right into the hive and take the combs of honey out and put it right in his pot. But the main reason that we were in the Nat Turner Forest is because we were going to that high hill where Papa's best friend, Methuselah Walker, lived. And Methuselah, he was younger than Papa, but they'd been friends for at least 50 years. So we would go up to Methuselah's house and we would sit out on his porch. And we sit out on his porch and Papa would reach into the slide of his overalls and produce a Pepsi Cola for me. And it just always seemed so magical to me. And I'd sit there and I'd drink my Pepsi Cola and he'd slip into his slide and he'd pull out that bottle of the elixir that he had. And took a little sip of that elixir, and that elixir was 150 proof. Now, what you need to understand is that Papa was an herbalist, and he knew all the herbs and roots in the Nat Turner Forest. And in 1919, they had the Spanish flu epidemic, and millions of people around the world died. And Papa came up with this serum, with this elixir that he said could cure the Spanish flu. And he went up to Methuselah and they got to cooking this up, and it came out to be 150 proof, but they said that over 300 people were saved from the Spanish flu by Papa's elixir. Now they got this still, and in 1920, the United States of America decides that they're gonna ban alcohol. So they built 2 more stills. They had 3 stills and they were pumping out bourbon. They had 150 proof and they had a 90 proof and I think they had an 80 proof. And with the money that they made from that was what allowed Papa to buy those 2 houses across the street from the Nat Turner Forest. Now, Methuselah had his own ways, and the thing is that Methuselah was a National Association for the Advancement of Colored People kind of person. And NAACP people believed that colored people should prove to the crackers that we deserve to be loved by them and that we deserve equality and that we deserve justice. But Papa, he was a Universal Negro Improvement Association black person. And they believed that that which we do not do for self will not be done. And that we need to build our own schools and that we need to build our own factories and that we need to do for self. And so that's the only time that you see these 2 guys coming into an argument. But just listening to them is what made me know that I someday wanted to be a storyteller, like they were. They told me stories about the Civil War. They told me stories about the Spanish-American War. They told me about World War I. They told me about World War II. They told me about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But nevertheless, my parents decided that they wanted me to go to a real school. So Papa took me to school. Now, you know how folks be talking about, well, you know, back in the day, when I was a kid, we had to walk 10 miles through the snow to get to school. We didn't have to do that. All we had to do was we had to walk across the railroad tracks. Then we had to walk up the steepest hill in the world. The reason I know that it's the steepest hill in the world is because when we went to the colored grocery store, sometimes I would get to take my red wagon with me, and Papa would let me roll down that hill to the bottom. And that was more exhilarating than any roller coaster that I have ever been on in my life. You get to the top of the hill, and then you walk for a block past the Jewish cemetery, and then you came to my school, and it had a sign. St. Joseph's Catholic School for Colored Children. I went in there, and they didn't have any colored teachers. All the teachers was crackers, but that was cool. The first thing they taught us when we got in there, they said, beware of the godless communist Russians. They want to kill us. Now, they are going to drop atomic bombs on us. And when they drop atomic bombs on us, we want you to get under your desks. We want you to get down on your knees and put your head between your legs. So when Papa came to pick me up from school, I told him what they said. I said, but Papa, you told me that the skin melted off the people's faces and the buildings crumbled. He said, so what good is it going to do me to get down on my knees and put my head between my legs? He said, well, son, that'll put you in the best place to kiss your little brown butt goodbye. So now that was the summer that Emmett Till got killed. Emmett Till was beaten, he was hung, they threw his body in the Mississippi River, and then pictures circulated all over the United States, all the colored magazines and newspapers showing pictures of this, and I have never seen anything as disgusting as the bloated body of this teenager. And when my parents saw that, they said, you have to come to New York. You can't stay in the South anymore. You have to leave, and you have to come back to New York. So I went to New York. I went back to Harlem. And about 2 months after I got back to Harlem, my great-grandfather died. And about a month after that, my great-grandmother died. And everybody in the world agreed to the fact that the reason that my great-grandparents died is because my parents took me from them. But 70 years later, it turns out that the girl, the woman, who said that Emmett Till degraded her, that Emmett Till said things to her that he shouldn't have said to her, she admitted that he never said anything. She just told the crackers that he did, and so they went and they beat him and they hung him and they drowned him. So now I'm back in Harlem. I'm living in a house that's got rats and roaches. I've never lived in a house with rats and roaches. I didn't know that kind of vermin even existed. But here I am in Harlem now, the Big Apple. New York, New York. Sounds so nice they named it twice. I'm in Harlem, the once upon a time capsule of the African universe. I mean, people used to go there just to say they've been there because they know if you ain't been there, you ain't been nowhere. But I'm hearing this tap, 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 tap. So I get up and I go in the living room, and there's my father's father. There's my grandfather there, and he's building something. And it's a wooden box of some sort. And as he keeps tapping, I start realizing that it's a shoe shine box that he's building. And he tells me to go get my Sunday shoes. So I go out and I get my Sunday shoes, and he puts the polish in the box and the rags and the brush and stuff, and he sits down, I sit down, and he shines my shoes. And while he's shining my shoes, he said, I need to explain something to you. He said, son, we live in America, and America is a capitalistic society, and capital means money. And in America, if you don't have any capital, you don't have anything. If you don't have any capital, you can't buy any food, you can't buy a place to stay. If you don't have capital, you have nothing. And there are two ways that you can have capital that I know of. You can either work for somebody or you can have your own business. And while he was telling me this, he's shining my shoes. And when he finished shining my shoes, I looked at my shoes, and my shoes just looked all shiny. I mean, they looked really good. But I didn't notice that he had 5 pairs of shoes sitting next to him. And then he took those 5 pairs of shoes and he put them on one at a time. He had me shine those shoes. And by the time I finished shining that last pair of shoes, I knew how to shine shoes. I was an expert at shining shoes. You could see your face in any shoe that I shined. And I've learned how to pop the rag and snap it and stuff like that. Then he took me and he put me in front of Hunter's Barbershop. And Hunter's Barbershop was like the most expensive barbershop in Harlem. And as a matter of fact, they didn't even do haircuts in there. They did what you call processes in Hunter's Barbershop. And a process, they put lye in your hair, and they try to make your hair straight, and then they try to make it wavy, and then they wash it out, and people would lose their hair, and it burned, you know. But I'm in front of Hunter's Barbershop, and I'm shining shoes, and my grandfather said charge 15 cents. I never got less than 25 cents. Mr. Hunter saw me out there being enterprising in front of his barbershop, and unbeknownst to me, he built me a 3-foot-high shoe shine stand inside his shop and invited me in. Now, when you walk inside Hunter's Barbershop, there's a row of 10 barber seats. There's a row of mirrors all the way down. And then on the other side, on the back wall, another row of mirrors. And then you got about 20 seats that people can sit in. And then you got the hair dryers, because after they put the lye in your hair, they got to wash it out, and they put you in the dryer. But as you walk in the door, the first thing you smell is the lye and the burning hair. You smell, a lot of guys were sitting there drinking bourbon in little paper cups, you know, so you could smell the bourbon, and everybody was smoking cigarettes, and guys were talking loud and cursing and stuff like that. No women were allowed in Hunter's Barbershop. It cost $10 to get your hair done in Hunter's Barbershop. So Hunter's Barbershop was more of a beauty parlor than it was a barbershop. But once I got my shoe shine stand, I'm in the back. And it turns out that the best place for attention in that barbershop is at my shoe shine stand. And so people would get up and they sit on my shoe shine stand, and after a while they would just start expostulating. They would tell stories, they would do poems. You know, the first person I remember was Silky Mohair. You know, and he got up and he said something like, "Good evening, my friends. My name is King Heroin. I'm known around the world as the killer of women and men. Nations have plotted and planned my destruction, but I am a master of greed and corruption. Heroin is not like whiskey or wine. Heroin has the power to take your mind. And for those who use me most, I kill them off with overdose." And when he finished, like, people were like, "Yeah, yeah," and a couple of people clapped, you know, and whatnot. And I realized that that was the place of honor, and that was the place where people told stories. And that was one of the places that made me realize, again, I wanted to be a storyteller. So now, I have 11 grandchildren, and I have 3 great-grandchildren. And so I had the audience to always tell my stories to. Except that a couple of years ago, my granddaughter, who is now 29 and has 3 children of her own, she started very gently saying, "But Papa, you told us that story already." And I realized that I needed a new audience. And that's how I met you people.